out in the town. There were mountains of lead that had been dug from the shafts. A creek that ran through the town now runs bright orange with, as the rainwater filled up the shafts, turned to acid water and totally destroyed this town. And this just happened a couple of years ago. So I've been wanting to write about it, and I thought, well, that's a modern day ruin to write about. So anyway, without further ado, I'll just read through that. And I want to say too that, like, you know, just one. Well, I'll talk about it. Shut up. Okay. So this is called The Vacation. Melinda has money problems. I know because I looked through her mail. And that sounds contemptible of me, I admit that. 2 months ago, Melinda moved into the second half of the duplex I rent over on 8th and Utica. She's 813, I'm 815. It's a cheap place in an already cheap section of Tulsa, a little more than a rundown shack. Like the other duplexes in the neighborhood, the house was built as a one-family home during the oil boom in the 20s, then converted to rent as 2 units sometime after the bust in the 70s. Melinda and I share one long front porch. Our mailboxes are side by side, the vertical kind where the letters lip out of the box a bit. So, on occasion, when checking my own mail, my fingers get nosy. She receives almost daily correspondence from collection agencies with names like Unifund, Asset Acceptance Corporation, Coastal Asset, or, most ambitious in my book, Collect America. Beginning around 8 o'clock most mornings, the muffled ring of her phone strays through the walls separating us. Since my layoff, I root around the house all day, and I can tell you that phone doesn't stop until 8 or so again at night. Even when Melinda's not at work, she lets it ring. Detective work not required. It's unneighborly, yes, but I've always gotten a little funny when I have nothing to do. I admit that too. But who could blame Melinda being miserable with a life like that? We come face to face in the evenings when she runs the hose over a little flower bed she's planted on her side of the porch. I sit in a green plastic lawn chair drinking High Lifes or whatever the corner quick trips reduced that week, pretending to read or watch the cars drift by. She's pretty in a peculiar way, round, fleshy face with pale skin and high cheeks like upturned pears, hair the color of burnt clay propped close around her forehead. Melinda waters in her bare feet. Every night she wears the same old brown jeans and a baggy t-shirt that reads, "I fought the lawn and the lawn won." And each night, the same deep sadness behind her eyes. Was it Melinda's eyes night after night that set this fire in me to help her to uproot the despair from them? I read a book once about personality types that claimed the desire to help others when you yourself need help is a sign of someone with a drive to protect. It's been a long time since I've had anyone to protect. One evening I'm watching above a paperback as Melinda drenches a row of sunflowers. She bends to yank a patch of weeds and the hose angles over one shoulder, spraying me a good one. "Oh," she says, her voice lilting. I pat a sleeve to my face and search for something that sounds appeasing. "It's okay." My voice is suddenly lilting too. "I'm not made of sugar." Her eyes rest on me for a second. "Oh, I get it," she says. "That's funny." And of course it's not funny, but this is how our first conversation begins. Melinda closes the nozzle and we make small talk and she winds the hose in big loops. She takes a beer I offer. I work around asking what she does. "Telemarketing," she says flatly, brushing dirt from her hands. "What about you? Seems like you're home a lot." I tell her about my layoff from the advertising company, which was only a part-time copywriting job I hated anyway. But I'm quick to add, I'm using the time off to sketch out a book, not just drifting around the house, not spying at her mail, not waiting for an hour just late enough in the afternoon it doesn't feel indecent to start drinking. "What kind of book?" Melinda asks. "A history book," I say, "about Oklahoma, but in a format that's fun. It's like an autobiography from the state's perspective, as in the state's a character narrating its own story." She gives this a gradual, polite nod. "It's a children's book, elementary school age." "Oh," Melinda says, "good for you." Lord knows I escaped school without learning a thing about our history. I wish I knew more. She presses a bare heel into the rotten wood edge of the porch. "I might appreciate living in an old dump like this. Some, anyway." And that darkness presses from behind her eyes again. She's just being courteous, I know, but it strikes me that seeing a thing to make this slummy place, with its bills and its creditors' calls, seem like a palace, seeing something hit harder than her, struck by a worse misery, might be some kind of idea. I could use that too. I could certainly use the company. "Listen to this," I say, finishing my beer. "The sun's not yet gone down and the evening is hot. I've been reading about this place north of here, off the interstate before Kansas. A ghost town, I guess you'd say, called Mills Martin. It got rich as a lead mining town, making ordnance in both world wars. Fancy hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, the works, right in the middle of nowhere in the prairie. These folks had a real party for a while until everything was mined dry. Now they say it's something crazy to see. The mining companies built mountains in the middle of town with the earth they dug from the miles of shafts. Mountains just south of Kansas, Melinda says, sipping her beer. Mountains, literally, hundreds of feet high. But that's what doomed the town. They were full of lead residuals. People started getting cancer. The empty shafts filled with rainwater and turned a creek running through the town bright orange, an orange creek. Sounds like a fun place, Melinda says. Well, not to live in, I say, but to see. She raises an eyebrow at me, then her eyes find her feet naked in the wet grass. Call me crazy, she says, but I'm not itching to get cancer anytime soon. A day there wouldn't hurt us, I say. It's late May, and the next evening is one where the air is so perfectly still and warm, you don't feel it touch your flesh at all. When Melinda comes to water, it's been hours since I've given up working on the book for the day, and I've put back a few beers already. I have more enthusiasm than is good for me, maybe. Across the street, a rock radio station plays loudly from another duplex, which could be a twin of Melinda's and mine. A family is throwing their kid a birthday party in the front yard. A gang of boys, 9 or 10-year-olds, wrestle one another on the lawn. They upset a folding table and some chairs in the grass. Onto the chairs are tied mylar balloons printed with cartoony sports equipment. Baseballs, bats and gloves, basketballs, and one of them pops when it is dragged to the ground. I give Melinda a compliment on her garden. She smiles slightly but doesn't look up from the flowers. I think my cornflowers are being overgrown by my sunflowers, she says. I think the sunflowers are stealing their light. I say. How's the writing coming? Dull, I say. I'm still looking for a research partner to study ghost towns. All right, Melinda says, tell me more about the place. There's a single pool hall left open, I say, leaning forward in my chair. I guess it's a place for the last holdouts, the few folks who haven't moved away yet. But it's those lead mountains and that orange creek we want to see. That's the real site. The Marmalade River, Melinda says, like the Beatles song. Now you're thinking, I say, a natural wonder, a real act of God. The kids are making a hell of a racket, one boy body slamming the next, really going crazy. The father, a lanky character with a long blonde ponytail, works a barbecue grill with his right hand and a beer can with his left. I catch the sweet smell of charcoal and meat. He seems oblivious to the children, nodding to the music on the radio. Melinda says, I suppose I'm scared of the, what would you call it, the fallout? I wave a hand through the air. Fallout's with radiation. This is just some old lead dust. We'll spend a few hours there, have a beer or 3 in that pool hall, come home. It's a natural wonder, a real act of God. I mean it. The mother, a bigger woman, comes from the house, and it looks for a minute like the kids might get it now for wrecking the furniture. But instead she slides right up to Dad and puts her arm around his waist. They rock to the music together, back and forth. Then they kiss. It's a long, earnest kiss. Finally, Dad looks up and sees me watching them. I lower my head, half expecting him to give me the finger or some other signal to mind my own business. But he just grins and raises his beer like a toast. I raise my beer too. I look back at Melinda. She's holding the hose absently off one side of the flower bed, watching us. Then she rights the hose and goes back to spraying. Invite us to the party, dude, she says. And I realize I've never seen any friends or family visit her. It's a Friday night and both of us are home alone. Right, I say. We like birthday parties. The next morning, Saturday, I'm at my desk. I spend a few minutes writing about the Creek Indians marching up the banks of the Arkansas, then give it up to look out the window. Melinda's phone rings from the other side of the wall, once, twice, 3 times. Then something different. She answers it. I freeze in place and turn my head dog-like to hear her muted voice. The words are indistinct, but it's clear she's shouting angrily at whomever's on the other end of the line. 5 seconds of silence, then more shouting. Finally, she slams the phone onto the receiver. All is quiet for a moment, and I sit frozen, my ear cocked toward the yellow plaster. Suddenly, heavy footsteps move across the floor. The front door opens and slams shut again, and then there's a knock at my door. I almost trip over the foot of the sofa, rushing to answer. Melinda stands at the threshold. Oh, good, she says. I was afraid you were out. I was only listening to my headphones, I say. She says, I'd like to take you up on that road trip after all. I need to get away from here for a while. I've been cooped up in here and I need to get away. Is that all right? Of course, I say. Can we go today? Of course.